The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall continue to follow me all the days of this protracted experience of death. I will dwell in the house of the most super intelligent, power, source, and force of love and creation forever. What's happening? Benton here in the bobtail at the customer, the company's dedicated customer or contracted with customer, however you want to say. I'm reminded, though, of why I would have preferred to go to the truck stop. Better rest for whatever reason, as well as there are some 3-liter jugs that are filled up that need to be emptied, if you get my drift. Can't do that here. Oh, sorry, Bob. And I'm doing this earlier because I don't have an assignment yet. Although, for all I know, my trailer's sitting at the docks right now, loaded with the paperwork prepared. And it's an information age, and I'm going to end up waiting around for people who work, more or less 8 to 5 to, people in one office on a different earlier. Is it earlier? Well, that might work in my favor. Yeah, I guess it is earlier there. Either way, people on an earlier time zone to arrive at the office. Sometimes it's a later time zone to arrive at the office and, tell me which load to take, and then I can go into the shipper office. So it may very well be it may already be ready, right? The paperwork may already be prepared, and there's absolutely no reason that I shouldn't be able to do my normal thing and start driving at 3 a.m. But nope, we're gonna wait for now. Maybe the load's not ready. That's also possible. Could be. I don't know. But yes, make it their problem. And this reminds me of the spiritual attacks of yesterday that I attempted to discuss on an afternoon stream, which didn't quite come off. I had to abort it early because I missed a turn. Then my GPS freaked out, which is probably actually why I missed the turn. And in fact, I ended up finding enough of a spot to pull over, and I had to completely reboot both my phones, not just the phone that I hotspot. I use hotspot off of my main phone to do my navigation phone. No, I had to completely reboot both phones to get this to work again. So that was interesting. So I've still got things to say, and I don't know. There's some days that we don't have a live stream, but they're few and far between. So let me eat this dark chocolate, though. Bear with me. It's a bit challenging to try to do my morning routine of preparing these egg yolk drinks and such. So attentions will be divided. So all I'm doing now is a live stream at the risk of making it difficult to impossible to have a proper BM, right? And it's like, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen for a couple of hours. And yeah, if I run my yap on live stream, that level of energy seems like it is able to sort of interrupt or delay the BM process. But you'll be all right. I've already scoped out which Walmart I'm going to. There's several Walmarts, but as I've discovered, many of them are not proper Walmarts, meaning there's no real grocery. They sell groceries, but like no produce, I should say. So yeah, please bear with me while I finish this chocolate. We'll get right back into it. Oh yes, and the ginseng, very important. And then I've got this ginkgo biloba, also liquid. It's similar to the ginseng, same company. These little liquid vials, if anybody's familiar with this. I believe it has the American ginseng, so-called. Sure, I'm bastardizing this. Eleuthero, Eleuthero. That's your so-called American ginseng. Will I remember to take it earlier if I don't take it right now? That's the question. Or, sorry, will I remember to take it later? Out of sight, out of mind, as they say. Now it's on to the, oh yes, more chocolate. The last of the chocolate. Yeah, I don't know if I'm really going to be able to multitask here. So I think we're going to put up the non-tent banner. So non-tent. So Benton absolved of guilt. Not that guilt would be the appropriate term, but I do want to talk about this make it their problem. I had some thoughts on that this morning already. A podcast in my head, as it were. But now we're taking the turkey tail mushroom and the reishi mushroom tincture. Start the day off right here. Front load with supplements. Oh yes, and the long jack tomcat Ali in the horny goatweed complex, which is really more of a testosterone booster than anything else. Not that I need it, but why not? What's the point of working 7 days a week, most weeks? Otherwise, might as well buy a bunch of nutritional supplements. But yeah, I found a proper Walmart, so gonna head over there I'll be there shortly before they open at 6. So that's the reason for the early stream, even though I'm not driving. And then I thought, well, if I'll wait till I'm totally done with my morning routine, and then it's off to see, what Sam Walton's corporation has become, then probably won't have time for the stream. That means do it now, sir. I'm a go-getter. I'm a getter-doner. I've got some thoughts on my coworker, this team, man-woman team. And they're actually the ones that came and rescued me that one time I wasn't able to back into that dock. And didn't really rescue me, but you know what I mean. Maybe you don't. Now we're having vitamin D as well as atomic iodine or nation iodine. What's funny though is they said this team, the guy said that they were going to Walmart, bobtailing over to Walmart, and I knew that there's all these different Walmarts, and most of them aren't proper Walmarts. So I asked which one, and of course I got basically the hey dummy. There's the one 2 miles up the road, and it's like, and not defensively, but because I've been to that one. Or there's another one about 2 miles up the road, or maybe 3. And so I think I skipped the first one, the one he went to, because I could immediately tell, well, that's not a real Walmart. Like, I'm from Arkansas. I think that's what I told him. I'm from Arkansas. I need a proper Walmart. And but then thinking about how fat everybody is, and not everybody, but Americans are so fat. Not by way of offense, but do you think they give a fuck if there's no produce section, meaning fresh fruit and vegetables? Why would they care? They're probably not taking advantage of it. So why would they care? So I figured out I can actually go on the Walmart store app, and usually, although sometimes they're hard to find, they kind of bury it in there, but usually able to find a store map to verify, yes, there is a proper produce section at this Walmart, sir. It's real, or at least it's claimed to be real. Yeah, definitely not a multitasker here. This is it's getting interesting. Getting interesting. Maybe I could have organized all of this before I went live. Oh well. We've got the non-tent banner up. We've got one listening. Shout out to you. Although historically that scared off whoever that person is, so maybe it'll go to 0. Oh my God, it really is only me. What's wrong with me? Nothing. It's got to be a sure sign of sanity and righteous living, right? Be the only one hearing what could potentially, the potential unleashing of at any given moment of the most powerful preaching available in the realm. And that's not hyperbole. I am that one. Don't care how it sounds. Which kind of reminds me of the spiritual attack of yesterday. And, also the biblical notion of no weapon formed shall prosper. But I think the verse is actually no weapon formed against me shall prosper. But, it's really, wouldn't it be no weapon formed shall prosper? Meaning, when I ran into this bozo, and he's a bozo, certainly this guy, no animosity, but he's a bozo. Fair enough. I've got my own bozo aspects to my so-called presentment. But he very quickly triggered several of my pet peeves. and could have triggered the undiagnosed fake autism if I hadn't been on the lookout for that. That's sort of that actually becomes part of the spiritual attack. Is I think the realm seemingly understands that in order for me to avoid going off into some sort of autistic spurg out, even if it only happens inside of me and I don't inflict it on the environment, it in some ways puts me on the back foot at a disadvantage, because the next thing you know, he's triggering some of my pet peeves, and to avoid, going into some kind of, the best defense is a good offense type shit, sort of lay back and go with the flow. And then also, if you think about the concept of turning the other cheek, I mean, this is somebody who, showed up, did me a solid, at least in some ways. I mean, I understand it's really, he was doing the company a solid, but, either way. Sort of the turning of the other cheek of us, like, okay, we'll just go with whatever this bozo's on about. But he did this thing that I really pretty much don't allow for the most part, which is he, upon sight of me driving my rig near the docks, his head immediately, and I have clear memories of this, his head immediately pops up, focuses on me. So it's like, have the demons alerted him on some level to be on the lookout? Why? Because, and so in my world, it's almost like, well, maybe the boss called him, or the boss, but I don't have a boss. That's part of the story also. But the owner of the trucking company, did he, say, hey, Jason's going to be there soon, and when he gets there, tell him this, tell him that, do this, do that. I mean, he could be on the phone with the owner right then, on his Bluetooth or whatever. All of this is possible. Hang on, we got to get organized. Yeah. Sure. Got started the water a little early if I'm going to dilly-dally on some of this other stuff. Hang on. Got to catch up. It's a routine. It's a system. Where's the spoon? Oh, there it is. The system is breaking down. All right. Crack the eggs. And so this is part of the way I've been able to recognize these spiritual attacks. And remember, it's one thing to accept the persecution and the spiritual attack, which in some way is, what Christians are taught, although that's not even really taught anymore, but, it seemingly was more of an idea in the past to be, and again, not a Christian, but, the idea of being spiritually attacked simply for being a Christian. That's been an idea more in the past, perhaps, but either way. And so I'm driving, and I'm going to drive like past him, do a U-turn, and then park to go in and talk to the shipping office to find out what's going on. But again, this is the company's dedicated customer. He's works for the same company. He's there. For all I know, I need to talk to him first. I don't know. And see, this is also the realm, it's using the fact that I have limited information against me. Right. And if I just go into autistic weirdo mode and just look at him and keep driving, and, now and as soon as I see him, he just starts walking towards me. So I already know I'm being seized. Right. And he's going to aggressively approach the rig. And this is something that happened. It happened a lot more during COVID, the pandemic, but I began to notice that anytime I went to a shipper or receiver, the more aggressively and directly the person that worked there approached my big rig, the more aggressive and shitty, and the more, in fact, the more I was going to be spiritually attacked. Right. So I'm watching this and I'm like, I know this is bad from the perspective of being spiritually attacked, but I sort of have my defenses down because, I've met him before. I've talked to him before. I know he works with the same company. I'm free to ignore the other drivers because most of them, we just kind of ignore each other for the most part if we work for the same company, or maybe there's a, hey, how you doing? I got made fun of at Design Transportation for being overly friendly. And some people don't like that, It's like, hey, man, I'm just trying to put that camaraderie out there. I thought that's what we were supposed to do as, fellow countrymen and all of this, and we're all in this together and blah, blah, blah. And, that's more lies and gaslighting of the system. I mean, obviously, we all know that, right? It's not real because it can't be real because there can't be an external meaning. See, there can't be, oh, we're going to group up together and, sing Kumbaya and everything's going to be lovely. As we quickly found out, so I more or less surrendered to the bozo. And if you've ever met these people, they've always got a plan. They've always got a plan, and in their mind, this is the plan. See, and we're not going to have a discussion about the plan. It's like, so what I've figured out about these people is the main reason there's never a discussion is because that makes it less likely that whatever the plan is that is acted upon, then if we have a discussion, now people are changing the plan. It needs to be their plan. And so I'm well aware of these dynamics. And again, the turning of the other cheek or the just, spirit of whatever. It's like, fuck it, I'll just go along with it here. And I'm realizing now, I'm going to have to pray again, Pray. Need to find what's a synonym for prayer. And I think really, ultimately, and not that I did anything wrong anyway, but some of this is by way of sort of optimizing my own processes. Is every time I drive a rig onto a site, I'm going to have already just said my prayers because I at least that would have focused me enough and pulled my head out of my ass, whatever layer of deep thinking I was ensconced in, carried away with, would have at least been focused enough to say, all right, this fucking bozo, and then just sort of dismiss him. Okay, man, whatever, and keep it moving. And not that it didn't even affect anything in the final analysis, but the even me thinking about it's the first thing I thought about when I woke up this morning, and I was still thinking about it last night. And this does kind of tie into your cults of personality where certain behaviors, I think people, one of these Mr. Personality types, which is, I've been that way myself quite a bit in the past, Mr. Personality, and still kind of fall into that. And what's interesting is to just sit back and sort of just let them do their plan, lead the way, and to realize it's like, yeah, this is not a good plan. And what ended up happening was he delayed me about 30 minutes. And that didn't really matter other than, maybe I don't miss that turn if I don't get delayed. Maybe I catch the traffic a little better. Maybe things work out a little more in my favor. It would have adjusted the timing. Maybe I get to that delivery and that I talked about on the afternoon stream. It's unlisted now, but it's still there for people who know how to get to it. If you know, you know. Um, shit. See, the water's boiling already. It's just too fast, man. You dilly dallying. Get it together, buddy. Everything's law. Oh, there it is. All right. All right. Make this happen. And so, what we didn't know, because we assumed, was that I was picking up an already loaded trailer, and the bills of lading were on the trailer, and it had nothing to do with this customer that we're at. It was a completely different customer, and the owner of the company is kind of one of these. It's easier to ask forgiveness than permission type. So I have no idea if he's supposed to be dropping, trailers here that have nothing to do with this particular business. So it didn't occur to me. I just assumed it was, but it was only going like an hour and a half away, 2 hours. I think it was like an hour and a half drive. It's where I was coming back from yesterday afternoon. She has about an hour and a half. And so there's a lot of confusion around that. So that confusion was going to happen no matter what when I talked to the shipper office. And then the shipper guy wanted to vent some of his frustrations with what's been going on, which I'm happy to hear. That's fine. And so in the meantime, without telling me or asking me or getting on the same page with me, the next thing I know, this guy's hooked up to the trailer I'm supposed to be driving an hour and a half away, and he's, for some reason, going to put it in a dock door. Now, I don't know if there was a miscommunication between the shipping office, and, assumptions. I don't know. Maybe it was an honest mistake. But so his plan included several steps that directly made my job take longer, inconvenienced me, and introduced a bunch of confusion into the process that I would have, in my idiot savant intuitive way, would have sussed out and avoided every single one of these, with my people skills. Just, I would have sort of Mr. Magoo'd my way through the whole thing. But remember, man with the plan's here, and man with the plan always has the plan. And through pattern recognition, I've figured out, man with the plan is oftentimes a bad plan, because man with the plan is operating from a strategy of he always has to have the plan, which is a disadvantage. To always have to have the plan is not it's in order to what? Dominate the situation. And so this clearly is something interpersonally that Benton don't like, right? And so the signs were there, the guy's head popping up, directly focusing on me. He's down on the tarmac, I'm up in the truck. And the moment he starts walking towards me, I just stop, pull the brakes, and it's like, okay, well, I've been seized, I've been kidnapped. I don't like being seized and kidnapped, right? And then to just drive around him, bust a U-turn, and then come up behind you. There's really not enough space to do all that without, coming across as quite aggressive, which is fine. Except again, I might be interacting with this guy. For all I know, again, he could have been acting on behalf of our employer, right? There's too much uncertainty for me to just be a dick and what? Make it his problem. How is it my problem that he's the man with the plan? But remember, the spiritual attack is, well, he might have the actual plan, right? Because if the big man, if the owner is like, hey, here's the plan, and Jason's going to be there any minute, go ahead and tell him, here's Jason's part of the plan, and if you would, I'm busy, so if you would relay that to him, I would appreciate it. That happens. That's possible. I must account for that in some way. I guess I could play dumb. I don't like to play dumb. That's a dishonest, disingenuous world where we all kind of play dumb. You know what I mean? Like, well, if I'm aware of all of this, why would I pretend not to be aware of it? Well, maybe some of that, unfortunately, in a world of death and game of lies, maybe some of that, that's how the royal we makes it their problem. Because make no mistake, if I don't make it their problem, they're going to make it my problem. Right. So this is what the contentious adversarial aspects of performing as a so-called human in this vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions. This is a big part of it. And what I'm not even learning, I guess I knew this, but based on the spiritual progress and the uncovering of the achievement and all of these things, and I'm less and less inclined to default to one of my skill sets, which is overt aggression. Right. I'm less and less apt to do that, and it makes me aggressive. I don't want to be. Now I'm in aggressive mode for the next couple. I'd rather just not even go there if I don't have, and then it's always there if I need it. Such as yesterday morning, the first place I went to, they kind of talked to me in a certain type of way, and I just fired, not in a bad way, but I just fired right back at them and just let them know, I'm in charge of my own program, and I'm happy to let y'all be in charge of your program, but I'm not going to be kidnapped. You're not going to seize control of me and boss me around and shit. Meanwhile, guess what? I was already doing what I was supposed to do. The guy intervenes, disembodied voice out of nowhere. Hey, hey, hey. I'm just like, hey, it turned out I was going the right way anyway. Like I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And maybe he was just curious. And it's the Northeast, so a lot of these docks are so busy. It was a steady stream of trucks in and out of this place. I just happened to be one of the first ones. And, that was 45 minutes of nightmare wiggling to get hit the dock because there's just not enough room. Like what we saw yesterday afternoon and that I was complaining about on yesterday's stream, there's just not enough room at a lot of these places. And guess what? That's their problem. I'm making it their problem from now on. And, I feel a little irritation and a little, I feel my dander rising because what it is it's it's an anger and an annoyance and a frustration. And anger is not really the proper term. It's probably some pent up anger from the past seeking to escape. But it's the fault of Americans who will tolerate and continue to tolerate anything. Just there's no end to what the American people will tolerate. And that idea and that behavior permeates all of society, right? It goes everywhere. And so this is one of the reasons why, labor unions become such a bad term. And it's like, oh, well, it's corrupt. And like, yeah, so is everything else. But if the union ensures that I can't be sent to a facility as a truck driver where they don't have an appropriate amount of space for me to actually do my job, and they're just going to make it my problem. Oh, there's not enough space out there. Well, that's your problem. But then they don't say it's your problem. They just say, well, that's funny because everybody else, that's enough space. Yeah, because 10,000 truckers have been here who should have said, no, man, we're not doing this. And everybody wants to romanticize the old days. In the old days, motherfuckers knew how to say no to shit. No, we're not doing that. If you want us, if you want a truck driver to come down here and deliver this load, or if you want a truck driver to come here and pick up your freight, you're going to have, you shipper, you receiver are going to have to figure it the fuck out because we're not coming here. We're going to come here. We're going to take one look at it and say, fuck you. See, that used to be a thing. That's over. It's done. It's not coming back. And so now Benton finds himself time after time after time in, inserted into these increasingly artificial, right? And they were artificial back in the day. It's just, it's more obviously artificial in my view. And of course, surrealistic, waking dream, surrealistic, unreality, deja vu all over again. Elements always present, as we know. And so now here it's Benton's problem. Except, well, I can just put it, that's not my problem. Because it's only my problem if I care enough about the outcome of me just going, well, I'm not doing that. And this is what I started to talk about on yesterday's stream, but there was really the afternoon stream, there's too many distractions. I just started preemptively telling them, the problem for me is I've got most of the guys who come here have been driving trucks for 30 years. And if it's physically possible, they can do anywhere that rig will physically fit, they can put it there. I can't. So it doesn't matter. We can, I can wiggle around in your parking lot for 45 minutes. And every single time I look up to pull forward, one of your employees is just sitting there looking at me because it's also the employee parking lot. My tractor should never be swinging around so that I can get underneath the tractor to back into the dock on some crazy fucking alley dock. And there's employee parking spaces. Like where my tractor's about. That should never happen. There's no reason for that. The only reason is there's a dock built onto the side of a building. And as over time, the trucks have gotten larger and larger and the trailers have gotten longer, truckers have just continued to hit those docks. Any step along the way, truckers could have said, no, we're not doing that. What do you mean you're not doing that? We're not doing it. So like in this case, when I first told the guy, the underling, actually when I told the second, and remember they sent me to two different buildings. And I say remember just because I said all of this yesterday, but I know whoever's listening may not have heard it. But and that's an inconvenience, but fair enough, it happens. Why I was sent to the wrong building is curious. And so I'm sent to the second building. So and they wasted about 45 minutes of my time. And I don't know if this was punishment, but after I told them I wasn't going to be able to do it, I'd already given them the bills of lading. And I guess I should have held on to them, but it took them like 20 minutes to figure out what they did with the bills of lading. It's like, well, I gave them to you, I didn't say this. It was like, well, I gave them to you guys. How could it take? So we're mystified and confused that I can't hit that dock, but the fact that it took them a solid 20 minutes to track down my paperwork, that's neither here nor there. It's like, well, I gave it to you guys. Like, how is this even possible? Where did it go? Right? Where did you put it? What's the meaning of this? I'm confused, but again, just surrendering and accepting the beating, right? When I talk about the job being increasingly impossible, it's like, yeah, it's just lay down and let yourself be beaten at a certain point. And even before that, trying to figure out what door to go ring the doorbell on. It's like, here I am, hat in hand, walking around like a beggar, right? Don't know his ass from the hole in the ground, in this scenario. The whole thing's fucked. I mean, it is. So it's to accept and expect this. And really, my only problem was now I did say the prayers before I went to this place, which I think is probably the only thing that got me out of there without it becoming contentious. So when I left the second building, they're like, yeah, I guess they'll just have to break it down and put it on a, they'll have to unload it over there and then they'll have to bring it over here. See, so there's obviously see, they're lying because there's a precedent for somebody not being able to hit that dock or refusing. I guess it happens every once in a while because those guys are like, yeah, well, I guess they'll just have to unload you over there and, they'll have to bring it over here. Well, see, they're trying to make it my problem because they just don't want to do that. And so this is your chicken shit, lazy, incompetent workforce, right? I'm happy to attempt whatever I'm able to attempt, but when I'm already struggling and the third time I look up and here's another employee trying to get to employee parking, I'm just like, no, I'm not doing this. This is crazy. Like, I'm not doing this. And until they move these, unless somebody comes out here and moves these 4 cars, I'm going to wiggle for 45 minutes. And every time I look up to try to pull forward, there's going to be a car that's waiting on me. Well, again, triggering the autism. And, half of my problem with backing is that, it's the hypervigilance. It's the overstimulation. Like too many things are happening, which is I'm still able to take my time and focus and get it done. But the spiritual attack is, well, he's going to do it and his pull up is going to look exactly like everybody else's pull up. See, the moment I start setting up the back, they already know that I'm not like other people. And, what do normies do? They normalize everything that's not incongruous. Well, to somebody who drives trucks all day, this is incongruous. Oh, you can't pull up like that. Why not? Says who? If the trailer gets docked and the freight gets unloaded, what's the fucking difference? And society used to account for that. Yeah, there's people who are just different. Reminds me of that movie Moneyball, when the Oakland A's ownership got tired of spending all this money. It's a book and a movie. Brad Pitt starred in the movie, but for whatever reason, the ownership was like, we're not paying all these crazy salaries. And so they had like the lowest payroll in baseball, but like 2 years in a row, they won like 100 games with a low payroll because the general manager, Billy Bean, hired somebody who they used this statistical analysis to treat baseball players, trading for them and signing them as free agents, to treat them like a financial market, more or less. And so the major way they do that is they find the most undervalued players. And the most undervalued player was a pitcher who it turned out was a really fucking good pitcher, but he threw sidearm, and the better he got, the closer his fucking knuckles came to dragging the ground on his delivery. And all of the old school scouts and baseball people can't visually see that. It drives them nuts. So same thing when I pull up to start doing my backing. There's something in them they can't visually tolerate watching that. It drives them fucking crazy because they don't have control of themselves. It drives them fucking nuts. And so they try to make it my problem. It's like, well, how's it my problem? I'm just over here doing my thing. How about y'all leave me the fuck alone and go away? I almost got into a fight on a construction site delivering cabinets, boxes of, prefab cabinets, because I rolled up, nothing was happening, right? There was no activity. The moment I start backing up, I look in my mirrors. There's guys hand carrying fucking gigantic air conditioners right behind my rig. There's some guys doing fucking donuts right behind my. I just got out and said, "Hey, man, y'all are gonna have to knock it the fuck off. Like, this is crazy. Like, stop. I'm not backing up while all of this is going on in my mirrors. Just knock it the fuck off." And they didn't appreciate it. But I said, "Y'all got to stop this." And that wasn't even the time they almost fought me on a construction site, because that was actually building materials for like some. They were refurbishing some big box store, so that was in like a shopping center or something. But I delivered to an apartment building, and while I'm getting out and looking and maneuvering, here comes some bozo driving heavy equipment with, like, some version of a forklift, and he's got some big construction equipment just up in the air and thinks he's going to drive through that area. I jumped out and said, "Hey, man, you're going to have to fucking wait." The guy tried to fight me. I said, "Man, I don't know what to tell you. I can't do what I'm doing, and you're driving around with something." For all I knew, he was going to drive over there and drop it on my truck. Stuff like that happens. And you never know what's in these people's minds. Remember, I got dropped onto the concrete from 13 feet up by somebody that I halfway suspected did it on purpose, if not to just, some version of a drug addict who's self-sabotaging, because the first words out of his mouth was basically, "Hey, don't get pretty please with sugar on top. Don't get me in trouble because I need this job." Well, I don't know. Maybe he's some scumbag and he's just got out on probation and he's trying to fly right and he has to have a job, and he's not really competent, but he pulled the heartstrings and pulled a favor and got hired, and then now next thing you know, Benton's got a broken heel. But this is all real, man. This all really happens, right? Thought I heard something. I need to see if there's anybody parked near me. There could be somebody right next door. No, nobody's around. Place is dead. It's funny, all those years homeless, vagabonding, and up early in the morning or sometimes late at night. Just talking attracts more talking. But then me just walking around, wandering around, I rarely would just hear talking. Just, oh, look, it's 3 a.m. and there's talking. But it's funny, I start talking at 3 a.m. and it increases the likelihood that other people will start talking. So, interesting phenomenon. Most assuredly. So, can't count the number of times I start hearing people's voices. But I know if I had been quiet, there's no way they would have started talking. What is this, man? It's unreal, sir. That's what it is. It's unreal. Don't you know? Get with the program, sir. Act accordingly. All right, fair enough. Cracking more eggs here. Make the second drink. And see, if I was a dispatcher, I probably wouldn't be very good at it. But at some point, I would recognize, hey, my driver likes to get started as early as possible. And, maybe they're going to load his freight before they go home, and maybe they will generate the paperwork. So maybe we can have everything set up for him so that when he wakes up, there's a text on his phone or there's an email. Hey, man, your load's over there in door number whatever, and course, part of this is they might have extra loads they want to put on the trailer. That's also possible. They may want me to go pick up more freight. And then, so if they send me on my way first thing in the morning, they clear me for takeoff, it's going to limit, the partials they can put on that trailer. And this is what they have to do to stay in business. And, when I went into trucking in 2018, a company could just do over the road trucking, one truckload at a time. And unless the shipper, wanted 3 different pickups and 3 different deliveries, then it was just one pickup and one delivery was the whole fucking truck. And now to earn a profit, this guy's more or less forced to do as much partials as possible. Like, well, that's okay. I don't mind necessarily, but it's definitely not what I would prefer to be doing. But that's the suck it up buttercup bootstrap. There is some validity to that. It's like, yeah, well, am I going to get everything my way all of the time? That's not realistic. It doesn't stop a lot of folks from trying. And some people will fight you tooth and nail every step of the motherfucking way to get their way for no reason other than that's what they want. And it's their preference and they want things their way. And what's funny is a lot of times those people do in fact get their way. And I have the capacity to fight all of those battles. I don't want to fight all those battles. I don't want to live in that world. I have the energy for it. I'm able to. Like, yeah, but why? Makes things miserable for everybody, including me. How about just don't do that? And so part of me pitching a fit is by the time I'm pitching a fit to the trucking company, it's like I've already eaten a lot of shit, but nobody notices. There's no way to account for all the shit that's being eaten. That's just they made it my problem and I dealt with it. And then they made it my problem and I dealt with it. And then they made it my problem. So I'm here to tell you, when it comes to tonight, and if they dilly-dally, and then they send me off into rush hour traffic and think I'm going to drive all night, sorry, I'm getting out of town. I'm shutting down at the truck stop, and I'm going to fucking sleep. And if y'all don't like it, that's your problem. And so that's, a long way around. Or I can say, hey, man, I'll do it tonight, but I'm not doing it tomorrow night. Because if I do it tonight, it reboots my schedule. And what I mean by that is, then I'll end up basically working the same hours tomorrow. So if I drive all night and shut down at 2 a.m. or whatever, then, maybe I'll be shutting down at midnight the next night. Maybe. See? So it's not really one night of not sleeping at the proper time. It's a minimum of 3. Well, from their perspective, that's my problem. Well, unless I make it your problem and just say, well, I'm not doing that, and you don't like it, too fucking bad. Which is my actual personality, interestingly. Funny how that works. Because I legitimately don't care. Yeah, man, he's the one that decided to earn a living owning and operating a trucking company. If you don't like it, go do something else, buddy. That's what I used to tell the cops back in the old days if they would ever try to lecture me on my attitude. I said, man, you could quit your job. I said, you're taking money to deal with my attitude. Why are you complaining to me? And I didn't understand this concept yet, but he is like, you're trying to talk to the criminal, motherfucker, the criminal, and not an actual criminal, but it's like, you're trying to talk to you think you're going to talk somebody with a bad attitude out of having a bad attitude? It's like, far as I know, I got a constitutional right to have this bad attitude, motherfucker. Am I breaking the law? Arrest me if I'm breaking the law. Put the cuffs on me. But if you don't like my attitude, how's that my problem? That's your problem. Quit your job, partner. I used to just tell them stuff like that. And, I've turned over a new leaf, and not that I consider that to be wrong. I find eventually I realize it's just simply not in my best interest, doesn't serve me. That does become sort of an ego game, so called, viewing myself as some not even tough guy, just outsmarting these bozos. Yeah, they're easy to outsmart. They're very predictable. I always have the advantage over the popo because they don't know what the fuck I'm going to do, and they're very predictable. So, just that alone, they're quite easy to deal with. My in my experience. Now I'm very respectful, but I'm just like, well, respectfully, sir, I'm not. That's not going to happen. And I got stopped on foot one time, famously, and was just like, they try to play the whole, they're investigating, and you know, basically they're implying that it's somehow my best interest to get cleared from their investigation. And the moment they said they're investigating something, I said, well, that has nothing to do with me. Hmm. And this is after I forced them to admit they were detaining me, not by saying, am I being detained, by repeatedly attempting to leave. Which was, unless you tell me I have to stay here, I'm leaving, and I'm walking that way. And after about the fourth round of that, finally they're like, yeah, you're not free to go. Okay, well then I'm being detained. Pull my phone out, started my fucking timer. I said, my research indicates you've got around 20 minutes to conduct your investigation. So let me know when I'm free to go, if you would. But, to convey all of that respectfully. And I don't give a fuck if they don't like it. Don't like it. A lot of social pressure and a lot of the adversarial, contentious, interpersonal aspects of the realm is making things my problem. Why is it my problem if somebody else doesn't like something? There's all sorts of shit I don't like. Nobody cares that I don't like it unless they're trying to get something out of me. And I recognize that, I do have these manipulative layers, the Machiavellianism that I sort of just default to unknowingly a lot of times. So I'm apt to kind of let this other bozo driver run the show to some extent, just to extend some affability and compliance, because I can always manipulate later. See, that's one of the something about this dead flesh that traces its origins to this world. See, that ain't what I am. What I am would never be that way. That's learned behavior, right? After being sacrificed to Moloch and having, more or less Stockholm syndrome and a train run on us. I don't ran through, I guess would be the best, ran through by the system, too closely identified with the system. So ultimately, that probably was a little bit of a sin, so called, of taking the realm a little too seriously, right? At least, momentarily, and then, pulling myself out of it, right? And then off to that delivery. And it's funny, man, because I asked the guy when he pulled up with my trailer, which there was no reason for him to ever hook up to in the first place. And so I'm very diplomatically, I'm like, well, I was told the bills were on the trailer. So I'm like, hey, are the bills of lading? Well, he didn't check, because why would he check? So he lies and says, no, they're not on there unless they're on the other side, meaning, yeah, there's a box that its whole purpose is to hold the bills of lading, except if it rains or snows, it gets wet unless you put it in a plastic Ziploc. So a lot of drivers will just put the bills in like a Walmart bag or a shopping bag, and they'll just tie it to the landing gear handle. So what he meant was, well, when he lowered the fucking landing gear, there weren't any bills of lading there. So he didn't look for it. It's just if they were there, he would have seen them. And guess what? So would anybody else, including, animals passing through the area that might take off with it, or just some random fucking ne'er-do-well, some wandering homeless person. The next thing you know, they've wandered off with the bills. Like any of this is possible, man. This is all in play, to some degree or another. And but again, remember, he's a man with the plan. And so then at that point, the breakdowns in his bozo plan are exposed, and I don't rub his face in it or anything. It's fine. It's like, clearly this is not the person to follow. And this is, he's a boomer. He's in his 60s. And, I don't know how accurate this is. I heard through the grapevine that maybe Ben Thorpe, if anybody knows who that is, got on a panel with that Landry from Modern Men Lost Again, and was talking about the different generations. And I think maybe Ben Thorpe had a point about Gen X and Gen Z, maybe in relation to the actual boomers. But I can't speak for other Gen Xers, but I get along great with Gen Z personally. I don't know if some of that is my own sort of youthful, vibe, even amongst, 50-year-olds. But, I never completely grew up. And I'm, of course, one of the few that didn't raise children, one of the few that falls into that category. But either way, I've still got a little bit of the Peter Pan thing going on. And then the neurodivergence, if that's the thing, that certainly adds to it, just sort of an obliviousness and a kind of a naivete, at least in the moment, from time to time. Speaking of times, it's already 3:30. If I waited, I wouldn't have had time to do this stream. Another hour and a half will tick by, and then it'll be time to start getting ready to drive to Walmart. I think I am going to go ahead and have this Ultra Ginkgo Plus White Mulberry American Ginseng Rhodiola. Yeah. And, ginkgo biloba, of course, is the main ingredient. See, I think we'll have some of that. Why not? And, I'll say this. Sometimes I say to people, if they want to try to tell me how to back up and it's easy and all this, I'm like, well, do you have a CDL? No. Well, then no offense, but no, you don't have an opinion. You don't have a CDL. So why would I listen to you? Because, I've had the expensive pea crowd want to make fun of me for supplements, but it's like, yeah, somebody who eats a poor diet, meaning a standard American diet, even if they're in denial, somebody who eats a bunch of highly processed crap, your opinion, and I don't mean you, the listener, their opinion is not relevant to me choosing to spend my money on supplements. Because even if it does amount to expensive pea, a bunch of highly processed food that costs money and provides the body with nothing beyond empty calories and artificially powerful tastes, and most people have no idea how addicted they are to these foods. It's an actual addiction to highly processed foods. Why would I care about their opinion? And so back to the boomer thing, this guy and his wife, overweight, which is fine, but and then just this whole, I've noticed something with the boomers and the generation older than them in their world. Well, if he's, 62 and I'm 50, well, then he's smarter than me because he has a greater life experience and therefore has to be more wise. Well, it's like, absolutely not. That's crazy. That would be to say that it's not possible for me to live in such a way to utilize and leverage my talents to have, far exceeded him in certain ways. And it's not a competition, but it's like, I'm not just across the board fucking less than. And I think that's part of the reason I get along with the younger generations is I don't do that to them. I recognize that I don't like it when the older folks won't listen to me. And so when the younger folks have something to say, and in fact may know way more about a topic than I do, I just shut the fuck up and listen and learn, right? And a lot of the boomers just can't do it. And so I think some of that is just he probably viewed himself as, superior sort of in a military hierarchy structure, just solely based on and greater experience as a truck driver, sure. But that has nothing to do with him not understanding that, not being able to work around the confusion where he thought he was supposed to be. It's like, imagine if I had showed up dragging his his preloaded trailer, and the company's already told him where to deliver it to. Now, he wouldn't have been shitty and lost his mind, but he probably would have talked to me in some type of way, like basically like, "Hey, bozo, what's wrong with you?" I didn't do that to him. Just like when I'm thinking about it later, I'm like, what was he even doing? Like, what did he think he was accomplishing? And so meanwhile, now I'm overstimulated trying to back into the dock. He's drops my trailer just, in the fucking parking lot, bobtails around, and now he's just staring at me. I guess they're going to watch me back up, whatever. And then, of course, now you got employees driving through the area while I'm, and again, I might need to pull up 3 or 4 times. This is normal for me. I might need to pull up 4 times to hit because it's still tight, right? It's still a tight dock. I don't have a lot of space up front. It's okay. I've got enough of a skill to do it, but it actually just it makes the whole thing work. Meanwhile, if we would have had a 5-minute meeting, straightened everything out, since he is, seems like a go-getter type and he's not lazy, probably I could have been like, well, hey man, if you don't mind, I'll drop my empty trailer over there. You can hook up to my empty, drop my loaded. Well, see, he was already bobtail. Don't hook up to my loaded trailer. I'll drop this one while I'm driving over and getting hooked up to my loaded trailer. Then you, if you don't mind, can hook up to this empty trailer, put it in the door. And then I'm pretty sure that was the trailer they were going to load and he was going to be hooking up to it anyway. So why am I backing into the dock? And then I got back yesterday afternoon. I'm pretty sure he moved it to a different door for whatever reason. So he ended up backing it in anyway. Whether they made him or he chose to. And he seems like a nice enough fella. If somebody else came along, maybe he just moved over because it was easier for them because it's tight over there. But the whole thing's mystifying. And when I look back on it, it's the realm making things my problem that just aren't my problem or aren't supposed to be my problem. And it's for the purposes of spiritual attack, because remember, none of this is going to amount to a hill of beans. The actual business transacting, it's neither here nor there. Yeah, we can pretend like, oh, well, that's how people feed their families and that's the strength and the prosperity of America. Oh, you mean this bankrupt America that's so bankrupt the banks had to be bailed out 15 years ago? That prosperity? What are you talking about? Like this is a fucking third world bankrupt, morally bereft shithole. That's what this country is, whether you like it or not. That's an accurate description of today's America. If somebody don't like it, not my fucking problem. That's the reality. And then I understand that for 33% of the populace, the first words out of their mouth will be Democrats. Yeah, blame it on Biden's poopy diaper all you want. It's still an accurate statement. Meanwhile, and I will talk politics a little bit, as far as I'm concerned, anybody that lived through Bush Cheney and would for 1 second think Republicans are the solution to anything is out of their fucking mind. It's like that performance. If there was a proper America, if there was a proper society, the people would have said, "Yeah, we're out of the Republican business. Y'all are on your own." Right. And same thing with the big banks. Oh, okay, well, we'll bail you out, but we're not going to bank with you anymore. Like, why would we put our money in institutions that went on record and said that if they don't get the bailouts, they can't continue to operate, meaning they will go the fuck under, which means the banking system went out of business. It completely went out of business. Now, yes, it continued to operate. Many corporations, air quotes, go out of business and continue to operate because it's a zombie financial system. It's Enron as the darling of Wall Street for 9 years in a row, and it was a zombie institution the entire time. It was bankrupt. The way it was operating, eventually, when it was exposed how Enron was operating, the stock basically went to zero, more or less overnight. Now, it's almost hyperbole, but do people even know that? Or do they just think, yeah, Enron, those fraudsters went to prison and everything got fixed? Oh, wait a minute. You mean those fraudsters who were best friends with Bush's daddy? Ken Lay was really good friends with Bush's daddy and sought to develop a relationship with Bush, with W, and attended as so basically when Bush's daddy, when his son is elected president and is inaugurated for the first time, well, now Bush Sr. has a high honor to bestow upon somebody because he's going to take somebody with him potentially. Hey, Ken Lay of Enron, why don't you and your wife come with me and Barbara to W's inauguration? And that's who they took. Ken motherfucking Lay from Enron, who was, Enron was headquartered in Houston, an energy company in Houston. And, Herbert Walker supposedly made most of his money in Houston in the energy business and he was portrayed, at least in the books about Enron that I've read, multiple books about Enron, he was portrayed as he admired Ken Lay more or less for what he called Ken Lay's service to Houston, basically, making Houston a bigger and better city than it otherwise would have been. Well, go look at Houston today. I've got videos popping up in my feed about how bad the job market is specifically in Houston. It's hollowed out, man. It's gone. It all left. It went somewhere else. And this is capitalism. Really, it's corporatism. Is the corporations compete at the lower levels and grow and change and evolve and serve the system and serve Moloch's machine. And eventually they grow to a height where it becomes the actual Ned Beatty speech from the movie Network from 1976, where he says, there are no nations of the world. He said, he's castigating the normie TV presenter, Howard Beale, right? Mr. Beale, who's had this spiritual fucking awakening or whatever, and mental breakdown. And he's like, you're an old man who thinks in terms of nations and peoples. He said, there are no nations. There are no peoples. There's only, and he named all these old timey corporations, Union Carbide and AT&T and this corporation. But he specifically named, very powerful, almost monopolies. So today it would be Amazon, Walmart, just whoever is a giant in their industry, right? He said, those are the nations of the world. And he said, what do you think? And it was, of course, this was back during the Cold War. What do you think the Russians talk about, in their meetings? What do you think they talk about? Communism? Karl Marx? He said, no, they get out there their actuary tables. They get out their, their slide, whatever it is. They get out their calculators, and they calculate the. He used specific business terms that I'm not familiar with, but they calculate the return on investment and the cost price analysis of their financial transactions, just like we do, just like the Chinese do, just like the Saudis do, right? And that was what started the rant, was the idea of the Saudi money, because he said, the government of Saudi Arabia or whoever put, they've now punished the American corporations by removing, they had bought out or they had invested in this media company in the U.S. And he said they've taken their money out and now they must put it back, which means I'm the salesman, because he started out saying that they say I could sell anything to anybody, and I'm here to sell you something. And then that was the speech was, look, this is what's happened and it has to unhappen. And I'm the one who must convince you to go on that television and say what I need you to say so that everything will be copacetic again. And that so the Saudis will put their investment back into the system. See? And all of that pertains to the banks. Every bit of that also applies to the bailouts in the banking system. Once these corporations grow to a certain level, they're not American anymore. See? Anheuser-Busch ain't American anymore. It's a part of InBev, which is Belgium, right? But people still think of Anheuser-Busch as American. Well, it's owned by a company in Belgium, right? Or it technically merged with I guess InBev it's called. And I think it's AB InBev now, maybe. I don't even know. And do you think your average person has any fucking clue about that? Can your average person, I still see people in the so-called truth community, if I mention Bud Light, everybody starts laughing and say, can you believe those fools who hired that tranny and then Bud Light went into the shitter? Well, guess what? Modelo is the best-selling beer in America, and it was going to become the best-selling beer in America. InBev knew it. Everybody knew it in brewing beer. And what does the corporation care about? As long as their sales go up every year, do they give a fuck? Right? And so I knew while that Bud Light controversy was happening, I thought to myself, well, their profit margin on Bud Light can't be very high. Meanwhile, I noticed that Budweiser had been rolling out all sorts of, products with Bud Light branding. They've been trying a lot of new shit. So they knew that Bud Light was on the decline anyway. Why not sacrifice it? Meanwhile, they would know that even during some kind of controversy, they're still going to have an opportunity if people stop buying Bud Light, if InBev can convince them to buy other InBev products that have a higher profit margin and maybe cost more, because remember, Modelo costs more than Budweiser generally. Guess what? That's better for the corporation. But the normie wants to laugh as if the people running one of the world's largest corporations, the giant of that industry, they're dummies and they're fools. Yeah, sure they're not. That's not how it works, folks. It don't work that way. And I don't have to know anything as a layperson to say, well, I think I'll just Google what year did the Bud Light controversy happen, and then, okay, what are the total yearly sales for? And I did specifically Anheuser-Busch because it is a separate, it's still a separate entity, even though it's under a larger corporation. It's a wholly owned subsidiary, I think is how they call that. I don't know. I'm not an expert in this. And guess what? Other than everybody in the industry saw a decline in 2020 because of the pandemic, their total sales, it goes up every year, folks. So what does it matter to Anheuser-Busch that Bud Light sales were down? They probably made a greater profit. They probably repositioned themselves more advantageously in the marketplace because they knew they weren't going to be able to stop Modelo's rise anyway. Modelo was going to become the best-selling beer in America regardless, especially since with corporate fascism, the merger of the corporations and the government, and you think Anheuser-Busch's fucking bigwigs didn't know that the government's bringing in tens of millions of people from Latin American countries who are, some of them are going to drink Budweiser, might be more inclined to drink Budweiser, but yeah, some of them will drink Bud Light, but a lot of them are going to drink Modelo, Mexican beer, which is, again, it was going to become number one no matter what. There wasn't no stopping it. So next thing you know, here's a bozo tranny to endorse the product. And now, well, everybody understands why Bud Light's no longer number one. Except that's not what caused it. It was going to happen anyway. Now, it hastened it. And why? And then now we're talking about the idea of managing the downside, or the idea of, boom bust cycles, and sort of never letting a good crisis go to waste, right? Probably leveraged it to their own advantage, see? But your general public can't think that way. They can't reason their way through that, and that's fine. And in a collaborative, cooperative, teamwork society, we would say, well, we have Benton, and he thinks that way, regardless of, what he does for a living, or what we pay him, or where he lives. And we don't need to concern ourselves with this because we trust Benton, we know Benton, and we can just go ask him about it. Hey, man, what about this Bud Light tranny controversy? And I'll break it down. And then, okay, well, that makes sense. Now, we know with the media, and we know with the status quo, we know with the social contracts, that Benton's always some version of Gene Hackman from the movie Enemy of the State. They can't trust me. Nobody can place their trust in Benton because they can't then go to a third party in their peer groups and say, well, Benton said this, Benton said that. Yeah, well, who the fuck's Benton? Benton has no authority. Benton has no standing. Because this realm, this system of things that seeks to make an enemy of what I am, it will never, ever, unless for its own purposes, it will never allow Benton. It will never give him that power. It will never give itself. It will never surrender to Benton in that way. But Benton is expected, or, treated in a way like, well, he's a lowly, wretched, sinning piece of garbage, and he's got to act right. He's got to atone. He needs to pull himself up by his bootstraps. It's like, no, y'all need to do better. And I don't mean you, the listener. The system needs to do better. Society needs to do better. And that can't happen unless the individual does better within themselves, on behalf of themselves, disconnected from status quo, disconnected from social contracts, disconnected from peer groups. Guess what? They can't. The psychological control that they're under won't allow it, and they are unable to break the psychological control. So when I tune into a panel, right, in the panel verse, it's a replay of Modern Men Lost Again from a couple of nights ago now. And, oh, well, look, here's old Freedom Grower Dick, 4 to 5 years later, still looping into we level problem solving. right? Now, at this point, whether it's his job to be an agent or whether he's psychologically controlled and he's unknowingly serving as as an agent of the system, a sysagent, as I've taken to calling them, SYSAGENT, sysagent. It doesn't matter. He's functioning as an agent of the system, and he's psychologically controlled by the system, and he can't extricate himself from we level problem solving, right? And this is where there can't be a so-called truth community, because it's and I have a lot of experience paneling and hosting panels and joining panels. In order to keep things copacetic, here's Dick. We like Dick. Pause. Anyway, and yeah, he's looping into we level problem solving 4 years later. How about you spend the 4 years, Dick, dealing with your own fucking psychological programming and your mind control because your parents sacrificed you to Moloch's machine of industrial and post-industrial society? How about unfuck yourself enough to be able to understand that we level problem solving is fucking stupid because the people don't have any power. Therefore, there can't be we level problem solving, Dick. And this is what I mean when I talk about that my channel provably exhibits the highest levels of thinking over time in the so-called truth community. Because it's like, we don't tolerate that around here. We went along with it. The royal we went along with we level problem solving for 5 minutes, examined it, figured it the fuck out, and said, well, until it occurred to me one day, until I'm deputized to go out here and deputize other people and say, hey, we're the group that's gonna we're gonna go to the government and say, here's a potential solution. Until somebody asks me to do that, I don't have the power to do that. So, meaning, until Dick can demonstrate that the people have any power whatsoever, it doesn't exist, Dick. There's no we level problem solving. It's not possible, sir. So is the government in some way paying him to behave this way? And then why does everybody on the panel just go along with it? Right. So you have now 5 people functioning as agents of the system. Now, why would Benton waste his time joining a panel? I'm already feeling a little bit of anger, annoyance, and resentment just thinking about this, because it bothers me. It's supposed to bother me. And again, it's probably some of the past resentments, seeking to escape and being healed and cleared in the moment. So let me take a breath and pause long enough to sort of let those processes unwind. But, it's beyond me. It's baffling. I don't want anything to do with it. So it got so bad. It got so bad that they started talking about AI, because Landry, uses a lot of these AI tools. And I guess Dick is not a fan of the AI tools, but I'm not really either. But I've read Kaczynski, the Unabomber, Industrial Society and Its Future, Disaster for the Human Race. And, I don't know if Dick is familiar with that material, but Dick starts saying things first. So he loops into we level problem solving. And then he's now in some ways attacking Landry's position as a supporter, at least a person willing to use AI tools, of saying, well, basically, don't you think, and he says the magic word, don't you think we should basically put the brakes on and consider, is society really benefited? And he didn't say it this way, but this was the message he was conveying. Is it really going to benefit society to have, NVIDIA as the world's most valuable corporation because of AI, and to to basically the AI as a concept, permeating all of society. Well, it's already happened. Number one, that ship has sailed, sir. Number two, I'm convinced, based on the writings attributed to Kaczynski, who, let's not forget, if he was a real person and really wrote all of that, had one of the highest IQs on record, and was under government mind control, government sponsored mind control, that what you're suggesting, Dick, is not possible. In fact, that was supposedly the entire point of Kaczynski's writings, and supposedly the point of the criminal activities attributed to Kaczynski, is the idea that you can't stop the advance of technology, that humans are going to adopt ever increasing technology no matter what, that humans don't have the capacity to put the brakes on and to pick and choose when and where to utilize the technology. Meaning they can't, the floodgates will always be opened, right? And I'm sure there will be exceptions, but overall, it's an overall opening of the floodgates at all times. And so now I've got somebody who has had the last 4 to 5 years to figure out, well, there's no we level problem solving, because even if I was the one, or the truthers were the ones who, even if the government and the corporations came to us and asked for our solutions, even if that were to happen, we're still not the people with the power to put the solution into practice. So what's the point of we level problem solving? Number two, what he's suggesting at the level of we level problem solving, and I hope he hears this, but I don't think he listens to these early in the morning, and I don't think he listens to the replays, and I should have probably said this to him yesterday, but that's asinine, sir. That's asinine. Right? Why are you saying things that are asinine? Now, I understand that they'll be like, well, why does that bother you, Benton? No, wait a minute. What bothers me is that I'm expected on some level to join into a community of people, and then this level of thinking is still, if I'm not around to call it out, once I remove myself from the situation for 3 to 4 years, at least, I'm not interacting with it on a regular basis. When I go back to it, here's the same person saying the same bullshit, but now it's a 2026 version of it, because we're talking about AI. And he's saying, well, don't you think, we should or could put the brakes on it? And I'm like, why? What makes you think you could put the brakes on it? Number one, you don't have the power. Number two, the holders of the power did not ask you. Number three, even if the holders of the power ask you, they still may not appoint you as the one to enact the solution. So what the fuck are you talking about? Meanwhile, number five, one of the smartest people on record, one of the highest IQs on record, wrote very intelligently and well researched, convincingly, in my view, about why what you're suggesting isn't even possible anyway, Dick. So is this an agent? Because why is this person? That's like 4 different loser thought processes on display from one person. Right. And it's like, oh, I'm not attacking the person. I like the person. The person's likable, in spite of continuing to espouse asinine rhetoric that represents an abject failure in his thought process. And so I'll double down, I'll triple down, I'll quadruple down. This is why you see the highest levels of thinking on this channel, because dissidents, it doesn't matter if they're an overt, direct agent or not. See, that's what people haven't realized in the so-called truth community. It doesn't fucking matter if they're working for a 3-letter agency. If they function in service of the system, they are agents. They don't even need to be in on it. Number two, unless they choose to perform their sysigent function in a dissident manner, then they might as well work for the CIA. What's the fucking difference? From my perspective, there is no difference. Effectively, if you bring it to real world effectiveness, there's not a difference. And so if Benton can be accused of being of annoyance or frustration, it's like, yeah, because it's difficult. What you're hearing is the difficulty that I have in accepting the reality. When what's the solution to what I'm talking about? The solution is to say, well, yeah, that's the waking dream, surrealistic, unreal deja vu all over again. Dick, when he shows up to Landry's panel or when he's in my comments in the afternoons, Dick is there performing based on waking dreams, surrealistic unreality. He's not a real person in that way. See, he's not an authentic being engaged in an authentic experience. He's performing specific, predictable functions on behalf of the system. And if somebody says, oh, well, you're saying the government hired him and no, I didn't say any of that. Now that's still possible, but are you really going to tell me that he can't serve those functions if he doesn't know he's serving those functions? That's nonsense. In order for that to be true, there would have to be no mind control. That's the whole point of mind control, is to have people out here serving entities and systems while not understanding that they're serving those entities and systems. And even better / worse, for other people not to understand that somebody like Dick is serving those systems. Because they say, well, we know Dick, we trust Dick, we like Dick. Pause. But you see what I'm saying here? Obviously. And how can I be expected to fit myself into a society that will not allow its members to access that level of thinking that I just demonstrated, that in my world is fairly mundane, folks? I'm not even saying that this has the highest level of thinking in the so-called truth community. I'm not saying that's impressive. In some way, it's like, hey, why don't the other channels get their shit together? Because that would require internal bootstrapping, mind, body, and spirit. They can't eat garbage and have a functioning brain and have the mental energies to continue to move forward a thought process day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out, year in and year out. That's what Benton does. See, and it only works when the individual goes into themselves, reckons with whatever needs to be reckoned with on an ongoing basis, and intentionally raises their level of consciousness within themselves on behalf of themselves for their own purposes, courageously, understanding and trusting that it's not going to serve me when it comes to status quo, social contract, conformity to peer groups. In fact, it's going to make it where I can't status quo, social contract, conform to peer groups. It's going to create a situation where I'm no longer able to do that. See? And so at some point, probably I won't be able to handle money or be employed for the most part. And that probably will be unlocking whatever the next spiritual level is. Because I'm not going to stop. What I am doesn't know how to stop. All it knows is creation and expansion, love, acceptance, justice, supreme, all-powerful beingness. It doesn't know anything beyond that, or beyond is not even the right term. That's all it knows. So in the context of a vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions that makes an enemy of what I am, now that brings us to, well, if the if the system plausibly operates to where it pretty much forces everybody to act as agents of the system or sysagenants, whether they want to or not, then now we get into that's a noun, a sysagenant. Now we get into adjectives. And what does an adjective pertain to if sysagenant is that's the function, that's the noun. So if every being has no choice but to, function as an agent of the system, well, now we have the adjective because we have a performer in the context of a performance, and we have free will as a concept. Not we collectively don't have free will. Not collectively we don't, only individually. There's no collective free will. So when people want to debate, well, does free will even exist? It's contextual like everything else. Externally, no, absolutely not. There's no free will in a group sense externally. That's not possible. That would be meaning. That would be power. That's not possible. In a manner that disagrees, dissenting, discordant. So to perform as a system agent, but to do it in a manner that disagrees, such as when I went to that building and said, hey, I can't do this. I'm not going to do this. I tried. I can't, and I'm not. That's dissident in a manner. And now it's the confusion of the person. Well, I'm baffled. I don't get it. I don't understand. Yes, sir. You don't understand because I'm here behaving in a dissident fashion and you're not allowed to understand. Because if you were allowed to understand, you too might be psychologically capable of joining me in dissenting, disagreeing with the system, and behaving in a discordant fashion, meaning not in accord or harmony, conflicting, incompatible. The Lord Christ Jesus was not compatible with this world. He was not compatible with the systems of this world. And it also means discordant also means of people disagreeing with each other, dissenting, quarrelsome. See, he's going to view me as quarrelsome because he doesn't want to get off his ass and make 3 trips halfway down the road and then half a mile and halfway back up the road half a mile and then do it again and then do it again. Okay, buddy, I don't want to be faced with trying to back into a dock and I don't have enough room. But my problem is that their strategy is to make it my problem. Well, guess what is the best strategy in most cases when things become contentious? Fight fire with fire. Burn down the house. Say, well, I'm not doing it. Oh, you think you're going to make it my problem? Well, I'm going to make it your problem. Oh, it turns out y'all need the freight? Is that why I'm here with the freight? Because y'all need the freight? Well, okay. I'm telling you I'm not doing that. Now, this isn't ever communicated overtly or said, but at some point, he's going to have to explain to his boss why they don't have the material to produce the product. And the boss is going to be like, well, okay, I understand, but why didn't you unload it at the other building? And see, he's telling me, because the first thing is we can't do that. And then it's like, when I tell the second building I'm not doing this, they're like, okay, well, just go back to the first building. They're going to have to unload you and they're going to have to bring it down. And they're going to have to because I said no. I made it their problem in a dissident fashion while also serving the system, right? I did it in a dissident fashion. And so the only way to counteract the system strategy of making things my problem or your problem is to make it the system's problem. Oh, system, you want this product produced? I say no. I won't do what you're telling me to do under these conditions. Do you want the product to be produced? Because I will just drive this fucking trailer out of here and the company will either fire me or probably what will happen is the next time I quit, they'll just let me quit because I've already quit this job twice and they wouldn't let me. That's my value to the company. That's my value to the system is that I'm the person when I try, not only do they not fire me for things like this, when I try to quit, they don't let me quit, meaning they talk me out of it. And I would rather just keep working anyway. I'd rather be driving right now if it was up to me. I'm taking the worst of it in some ways by not driving right now. Yeah, I could go find a company that would let me pretty much only ever work my preferred uh, schedule, but then other things would come along with the job, like, oh, well, I'd have to be on a W-2, and now I got to go work for an entire year because a lot of the W-2 companies they've gotten more picky, you know, because of the economically, a lot more people are trying to go drive trucks. A lot of Americans have lied to themselves again and told themselves that they can go drive trucks over the road for a living. No, you can't. No, they can't. There is a truck driver shortage in that way. There's not enough Americans who are willing to do such a humiliating, uh, uh, just bad job. Just bad all the way around. There's not enough people willing to take the worst of it. Again, the American dream to do more for less under, worse conditions, to take the worst of it repeatedly. That's the American dream, folks. And to then live below one's means, save up enough money to maybe figure out and network and figure out how to get into some greater endeavor to maybe strike it rich. That's the American dream. And that's what keeps people coming to this country. Because at this point, you got to be about half crazy to come here from these other countries, if you ask me. Because in the past, it was just considered America is just it's such a land of opportunity and wonder and splendor that, of course, these people from other countries want to come here. That shit's over. I'm in some ways surprised. There's people going back to Mexico that have been here for 30 years. Highly suspect. Before we stopped communicating. He mentioned he was working with a guy, in contracting and all of this. One of his coworkers is actually his roommate, I guess. Had been in America, came here from Mexico 25 years ago. He's like, fuck it, I'm going back to Mexico. Right? That's how bad it's gotten in America. Motherfuckers are Mexican citizens who are, law-abiding, good workers that make far more money in America are like, fuck it, I'm just going to go home. I'm going to go back to Mexico. This is crazy. That's a bad sign. And see, discordant also means of sounds, harsh, jarring, specifically music of musical notes or tunes, not in harmony, dissonant, inharmonious, right? And so when I first show up, everything's harmonious. The person who's helping me is he's affable and everything's in harmony. And the moment Benton goes dissonant, sysigent with it, now everybody's face changes. Now I'm looked at with suspicion, almost as if there's something about me that might be catching. So it's almost like, hey, keep an eye on that fella, stay away from him, because, you wouldn't want to, if whatever he's clearly afflicted with, it might be contagious, right? And see, this is all built into the human. And Moloch's machine, it artificially installs all of this psychology, right? This is not, and now, part of it is it's inborn into the dead flesh, which is animated death warmed over, see? And this idea of just the wonder, splendor of a human being, they're empathetic, they're loving, they're caring, they're tolerant. No, they're not. They're of this world of death. They're the human being is based on the lack of love. The human being is based on the lack of authority, the lack of intelligence, the lack of justice, the so-called pleasures of the flesh. Everything decadent, depraved, disgusting, ugly, and irredeemable. And so that's your idea of, born a sinner. Well, if the being never raises their consciousness enough to be able to identify beyond their mere flesh, then absolutely. The flesh, the nature of the flesh is sin. What I am is never the flesh. See? So this idea, Christianity's idea of human as sinner, well then Benton's not a human. Benton is surrounded by the human enemy, both externally, and the barrier is my own physical flesh is the barrier. And what I am in the context of time, space, location, place is in some ways entrapped within the dead flesh. See? So yeah, if the dead flesh is considered what humanity is and what it is to be a human, yeah, that's of this world. That's of the nature of sin. That's of the nature of death. That phenomenon is. That's not what I am. And even within vacuous, delusory, adversarial business transacting, if Benton is here and it's John 14:26, the Comforter, teaching all things and bringing unto remembrance, well, now Benton remembers, and at a certain point, many years ago in his own spiritual so-called development, I realized, oh, I'm doing all of this meditation and these practices and learning how to master my emotions, and I'm learning and doing all of these things. And first in kind of a mimicry, fake it till you make it, but then eventually rising to the level of being able to invent my own discrete spiritual practices for my own purposes. And I'm an expert at this. I'm one of the best motherfuckers in the whole world at this. I might be number one. Where's the motherfucking Dalai Lama? I might outshine the goddamn Lama. And I say, oh, well, that sounds arrogant. I don't care how it sounds. If it is, it is. Maybe it's true and ain't nobody else. Let's use some double negatives. Maybe what I'm saying is reality, and it's because other people ain't shit. You ever think about that? Is that not possible? Maybe it's individuals' refusal to do better within themselves has created a situation where I'm the top motherfucker, where I'm top dog in the whole fucking world. Are you telling me that's not possible? Point me to a motherfucker that you can say, well, that person is more spiritually developed than you, Benton. That person exhibits a higher level of thinking over time. That person breaks down spiritual concepts and translates the Bible with discernment and wisdom to a greater degree than you do. Name them. Who are they? Where are they? Until you show them to me, I'm going to move forward based on the idea that I have unlocked the highest achievements that have been unlocked during the time that I've been in this place. I'm not saying that I've done anything that Christ didn't do. Clearly I haven't. What I'm saying is he ain't here. I'm here. Christ ain't here. I'm here. John the Baptist ain't here. Fucking Saul of Tarsus ain't here. Not, different Saul of Tarsuses are here. They're running the motherfucking show. Right? And they say, well, what's all this emotion? What's all this energy? It's important. It bears emphasis. It needs to be emphasized. Again, if they have ears to hear, let them hear. If they don't, it ain't for them. Because whoever could listen to this message and take this in and turn it into something, because remember, there is no external power and meaning, and the followers, they aren't necessarily going to be attracted to this message, and because of my personality, because I'm sweet talking them, but lots of people will be attracted to my face, my facial features. If I codify a bunch of bullshit into some sort of movement, and then I deliver it to them in a catered, pleasing way to them, guess what? I don't want to be around people like that. I want to be around motherfuckers who can hear what I'm saying in the way that I deliver it and might think, well, you know what? I'd rather not be talked to like this, but he's the only motherfucker who knows how to say all of this in this way. And so guess what? It's kind of our problem. It's not my problem that motherfuckers might prefer not to be talked to in the way that I talk to them. Guess what? That's your problem. You gonna make it my problem that you, and I don't mean you, the listener, they're gonna make it my problem that they don't like how I talk to them? Fuck them. Who the fuck are you? Who the fuck are they? Oh, look, a building, and the people that work for a building don't like that I'm refusing to back into the dock. So what? Fuck them. Who the fuck are they? What are they looking up on the internet when they go home? What are they thinking about all day that they can't go? They can't. What pleasures of the flesh can they not wait to rush home for? What is so enticing and titillating in their lives? What levels of wickedness can they not fucking wait to go home and serve? See? Because I know what these people are, because I'm amongst them. I'm observing them. See? And it's not for me to settle their hash. It's to not allow them to interject themselves into what I've got going on. That's my job. Oh, you think it's my problem? Actually, it's your problem. Oh, you think it's my problem? Oh, well, Benton, you know, what you're saying is all fine and good, but if only. If only what, motherfucker? Go find somebody else who can do all of this. Did you talk to the criminal? Right? Jack Talcott will happily lead you off into foolishness, folly, error, and defeat. Go follow him. I won't even lead you. You try to turn the keys of leadership over to me, and I'll Krishnamurti that motherfucker. They thought they were going to make him the world leader of theosophy, and he said, "Oh, really?" And they waited for him to become an adult. They tried to install him as the world teacher, and he said, "Well, guess what? Since I'm in charge, we're shutting this motherfucker down, Jack." He shut it down. He said, "No, man. Y'all thought I was going to lead this bitch. Not only am I not going to lead it, I'm going to end it. So good luck following Benton. But old Jack Talcott, he'll happily take over any organization that would have him, right? Go find a Jack Talcott and install him as leader. Follow him. You think I give a fuck? No. Because I will Krishnamurti that shit. Jiddu Krishnamurti was an Indian spiritual figure, speaker, and writer, adopted by members of the Theosophical Society, if I'm saying that right. Theosophical Society as a child. Krishnamurti was raised to fill the mantle of the prophesied world teacher, a role tasked with aiding humankind's spiritual evolution. In 1922, he began to suffer from painful seizure-like mystical episodes that would produce a lasting change in his perception of reality. Well, it's probably Satan. It's probably demons. In 1929, he broke from the Theosophy movement, if that really happened. And in 1929, he broke from the Theosophy movement and disbanded the Order of the Star in the East, which had been formed around him. Wasn't his idea. People who wanted followers who wanted to find a leader to follow installed him and made a movement around him, and he put a stop to it. And see, I recognize this very early on when it comes to cult dynamics. It's a bunch of people trying to find a cult leader to follow. It's not necessarily a charismatic personality who just decided to psychologically enslave a bunch of people. Although that happens also. And let's not forget, David Koresh took over an already existing cult. He did not invent the Branch Davidians. He took over something that was already going and renamed it, supposedly. Krishnamurti asserted that truth is a pathless land and advised against following any doctrine, discipline, teacher, guru, or authority, including himself. What I'm saying, don't follow me. I won't let you follow me. Nonetheless, during his life, he tried to share his insights in the teachings. See, that's the spirit of what I am. It wants to be helpful, right? It wants to be helpful if possible, urging for a state without conceptual deliberations and thought. In Krishnamurti's perception, such a righteousness was only possible through the practice of passive or choiceless awareness, which he called the essence of true meditation in contrast to contrived techniques. And so now we see him being used as a systems agent. Now here comes the system and the agents of the system. He gained a wider recognition in the 1950s after Aldous Huxley had introduced him to his mainstream publisher and the publication of The First and Last Freedom, 1954, which is one of the, it's been probably the number one thing I've ever read that assisted my own development, at least at that time. But greater has been what I've discovered for myself, right? I'm talking about a book, mundane. A book is mundane, including the Bible. The Bible's mundane. Yeah, there's a lot of truth. There's a lot of stuff in there to glean, but it's still mundane. Many of his talks have, because it's dead words on a dead page. That's what's more mundane than death. Death is mundane. Many of his talks have been published since, among them commentaries on living and Krishnamurti's notebook. And see, this is the wisdom of the man. A few days before his death, he stated that nobody had understood what his body went through. And after his death, this consciousness, meaning his consciousness, would be gone and no other body would support it for many hundred years. What he's saying is, I know you bozos are going to try to find another me and convince it that it's my consciousness, and you're going to try to follow that. So I'm going to head you off at the pass by prophesying that my consciousness is leaving and it ain't coming back for at least a few hundred years, and all you bozos won't be here. His supporters, working through nonprofit foundations in India, Britain, and the United States, oversee several independent schools based on his educational philosophy. So what does nonprofit foundations mean? Vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions. They turn the man's life work into a business because everything here is a business, like it or not. You as a being on some level defined as a business. So tell me again about paying my tax. What I am can't owe death. It's not possible. So take me to court, government. If I know with 100% certainty that what I am can't owe a debt of death, good luck. I don't know how that's going to work out for the government. And it might become seditious, meaning the definition of sedition. So does the government, what does the government and Moloch's machine, how does it profit from having a trial, right, and trying to get Forrest Benton to do a thing? Meanwhile, if Moloch's machine and antithesis and antichrist want to continue, if Benson's performance represents the kryptonite in this world that makes an enemy of what I am, if my very presence and performance is, as I assert, it's like acid, this world of death is Wicked Witch of the West, I'm melting. If what I am properly identified, if that performance, just like Christ, what did Christ represent to this world of death and game of lies? See? So is it really going to have a trial in order to deal with me? Or in this wicked world, Why bother? It's like, yeah, we'll just, you know, turn a blind eye, and the government's not competent anyway. And okay, he doesn't file an income tax return. I'm never going to file. And I know I don't like to say never, because it seems like every time I say never, I end up doing it. I'll add a caveat: unless something goes very wrong, and in my own journey, I'm not. There will not be a filing of an income tax return. And uh, I suspect that at some point, the government's going to start asking my employer, "Hey, you got this contractor? He hasn't been paying his taxes." And so probably that's how they'll at least have me no longer working for this company as a contractor, right? And then at some point, maybe they'll approach me and say, "Hey, don't you want to get on the payment plan like everybody else?" I'm like, "No, I'm good on all that." Like, you don't want the pay? No, no. Like, well, you owe all this money. Okay, well, did you take it out of my account? Like, whatever's in my account, you're welcome to that. But I got nothing else for you, really. Because what I am can't owe a debt of death to a world of death. That's not possible. They say the national debt's 38 trillion. Divide that by 330 million Americans or whatever. Do you believe that you owe that money? What's the math on 38 trillion divided by 330 million? I don't even know. Let's see. What do you owe? How much let's just go by taxpayer. How much is the national debt per taxpayer? Now, they'll try to make legal arguments that I consented to being a taxpayer. That's fine. They can make those legal arguments all they want. And I'll go to law school, whether literally or metaphorically, and I'll counteract that. Uh, this says public debt for every American's share of debt for a child born in 2024 is $82,590. So when that person turns 18, I guess it's projected, and this is in 2023 dollars, it's projected to be $143,964 at age 30, 209,000. I'm assuming that's what that means. So I haven't quite found what I wanted. Probably Google doesn't want that to be quite as easily accessible. Let's see what the AI thinks about it. As of January 2026, the U.S. national debt is approximately $275,434 per taxpayer. So let me ask the taxpayers of the audience, do you feel like you owe $275,000? This figure is calculated based on the total gross national debt that has surpassed 38.5 trillion. Because the number of taxpayers is significantly smaller than the total population, the debt per taxpayer is substantially higher than the debt per citizen. Because the number of taxpayers is significantly smaller than the total population. Meanwhile, why was I signed up for a Social Security card at age 7 or whatever, when I wasn't going to start being a so-called taxpayer till I was at least 16? I think I probably started filing right around age 16. If assuming I made more than whatever, I would have been exempt, whenever that started happening. I think probably my first part-time job, it started occurring to me because they're taking out taxes. By the way, they took taxes out of my check. I started working my first job actually for my dad, but that's a kind of a different thing. But forgetting about setting my father's business to the side, I started getting paid on a W-2. I don't know, was there even a W-2 back then? I was about 16. I was 16, and they were taking taxes out of my check. And I think at a certain point, I was like, "Hey, am I supposed to file an income tax return?" It's like, I think it was like, "No, you don't make enough." But I'm sure it wasn't too many years after that I started making enough to have to file or to believe I was supposed to file. Surprise, surprise, folks. They can't make me file an income tax return. It's not possible. Now, yeah, oh, well, what about this? The IRS has guns. Yeah, the government's going to do whatever the government's going to do. I'm not in control of what the government does. It's going to just do what it does. That's insane for me to believe that what I do is going to cause, it's going to force the hand of the government. Right? That's mind control. That's people lying to themselves. That's not reality. The government's either going to continue to leave me the fuck alone, or it's going to crack down on me and transport me from the soft gulag of America into the hard gulag of the federal prison system. And it's going to decide when, where, how, and on what basis it does all of that. It's not going to have anything to do with my activities. Right? That's one of the huge lies of the system is, oh, well, fly right, do the right things, and, prosper and raise your family, and there'll be law and order, and, you won't be swindled out of your fucking retirement by the banks, and just everything will be above board. Bullshit. There's no proof of that. And we've seen much evidence to the contrary now, haven't we? Yes, we have. We've seen much evidence to the contrary. Indeed. So I'm not going to be sold a bill of goods. No, I will not be sold a bill of goods so that I can go along to get along, status quo, social contract, conform to peer groups, and get along with a bunch of cowardly, craven, wicked, fallen bozos entrapped and ensnared in their own dead flesh. No, thank you. So when I say as far as I can tell, I've risen to the highest level in the fucking realm, at least among Americans, based on my ability to perform, based on spiritual understandings and all of this, and to break things down and to, dare I say, teach in certain ways, if only to teach myself. Point me at somebody who's doing it to a higher level, and you'll probably point me at somebody who's running a business. Oh, you're gonna be the world's greatest approximation of the Lord Christ Jesus and simultaneously run a business? No, you're not. Whoever could creditably say, they say, well, he's far below the example of Jesus, but he's the best one we got. That can't ever be somebody that's running a business. Sorry. Because what did Christ do? What example did Christ set? Just like Krishnamurti, before he died, said, hey, man, my consciousness is leaving it and it ain't coming back bodily for at least a few hundred years, meaning don't listen to these bozos who are about to try to tell you that they found the next Krishnamurti. Don't listen to them. Meanwhile, to this day, businesses are operating that were created when Krishnamurti was here. Christian Church as a business. There's still businesses operating that were started when Christ supposedly walked the earth. Vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions. Oh, well, the Dalai Lama, the motherfucking head of state, a politician. Now, some say, well, yeah, he's exiled and this motherfucking leader of a nation. Are you crazy? They offered Christ the nations of the world, the kingdoms of the world, and in the Bible, he said no. So now the most spiritual man in the world is the Dalai Lama, who was a former head of state. Are you crazy? These people debunk and discredit themselves. Now, maybe I would like to see a world where enough people will behave in a dissident fashion so that enough people will just say, fuck it. We're going to also dedicate ourselves to spiritual progress, and we're going to follow the example of Christ, and we're not going to turn it into a business. We're going to extricate ourselves as much as possible over time from this system of business transacting. And when people try to form a cult around personalities, we're going to not allow it, right? Because it's a mistake and it's a folly and an error, right? Point me at somebody that's doing that. Who I can think of off the top of my head that probably came the closest, although I don't know a lot about his story, maybe a Marcus Garvey, right? But remember, kids, I'm not overtly trying to start anything. He was actually trying to start a movement for the benefit and the, to benefit his people, what he saw as his people, right? And then, of course, was, I believe, killed by the government, but, through his own people, of course, like Malcolm X, you know. Again, these are all agents of the system because everybody's an agent of the system, whether they like it or not, whether they know it or not. So that's the crux of the Christ story, is to at some point understand the role of each individual in this wicked, fallen system of death as described, and to understand, oh, Benton was born into this and inserted into this matrix. And because of consensus and because all of these things seem to be happening, that's the authority of the government, is that when you got here, there was a government that seemed to be operating somewhat above board. And then the education system indoctrinated you that, of course, it's doing it based on truth, justice, the American way for the benefit of the people. So, well, yeah, of course it is. That's the only reason it works, is because it was here when you came out your mama. Because if you didn't grow up habituated to a government and all of these systems, and then it showed up tomorrow and was like, I'm here, I'm the government, and this is what I'm about, you probably wouldn't accept it. But because it seemed to be happening at a level of consensus when you got here, based on a philosophy of solipsism, from your perspective, right? You might as well be the only actual being here. From your perspective, why not? Oh, well, this is what's observably happening. I guess it's all above board. I guess it's all appropriate. I guess it's exactly what it tells me it is. Oh, in a world of death and game of lies, the government, the most powerful systems of corporations, businesses, government, finance, military might, destructive force, it's just all above board and for your benefit, because a Father God loved you so much and knows every hair on your head that it said, man, I'm Father God. And I shouldn't even talk that way. Strike the I am from the record. But then this magical Father God, man in the sky, had such great love that now you're here, and he loved you so much he gave you a government and corporations and McDonald's and Amazon and Walmart and truck driving. Are you crazy? Yeah, you are, and it's not your fault. Figure it the fuck out, or don't. I already applied the solution. I'm good. That's your problem, partner. You the one got to get through your day. I'm gonna get through my day, unless this is my last day. And if it is, beam me up. I'm ready to get up out of here. Calgon, take me away, goddammit. I can only assume there's more unlevels to unlock, because why the fuck am I here? At what point is bitten as literal Christ, meaning at what point do I ascend to the motherfucking heavens? And they try to say bodily. I mean, no. But, that's another lie. He bodily floated up into heaven. Well, maybe that was the perception of the people down on the ground, but like what his flesh is abiding in the fucking, it doesn't even make sense. Like, what are you talking about? Now, part of that is probably for the dogma and the doctrine of, what was made, what happened to his body. Okay, I'm willing to accept that his body he disappeared his own body, maybe. Because remember, Krishnamurti had to make sure and tell these motherfuckers, hey, man, after I'm gone, the consciousness ain't in my physical body anymore. And it's not, my consciousness ain't coming back to a body for at least a couple hundred years. He knew he had to tell those motherfuckers. You think in the Christ story, they know they got to, whoever is responsible for that, right? Or maybe just based on actual law and, the authority and the power and the justice of what I am. Maybe it has to be in the story. He died the first time, apparently, traveled the underworld, then arose from the dead. They saw him in public. Why does he need to be in a physical body? Right? It's the victory over the dead flesh. It's the liberation from the prison of the dead flesh. See? Christ was liberated and delivered from the death of the bodily form, folks, through transcendence, a process of transcendence. He inhabited the flesh and moved beyond it. Regardless of why or how it happened, Benson, in the form of what I am, inhabits the flesh. And if what I am is the way, if what I am is the truth, if what I am is the life, we already have a precedent for what I am transcending and liberating itself from the prison of the flesh. It's already happened if we're Christians, and I'm not saying we are. See? If Christ consciousness is a technology, if unlocking the achievement of true knowledge of self represents a technology or an achievement or something that a state or an experience that can be inhabited through these various processes, then it's also Christ as the 4-minute mile. Oh, look, if I believe Christ ran the equivalent of a 4-minute mile in the flesh, well, I guess I better start running. Oh, look, it turns out I was also able to run a 4-minute mile. Huh. Who knew? Oh, but Saul of Tarsus founded most of Christianity by writing a bunch of bullshit lies that said, well, we already had a Jesus and you ain't him, so I guess we're not going to be seeing any more. I guess that's the last 4-minute mile we're ever going to see. It's like, okay, well, you ain't seen me yet, buddy. Here I come. 4-minute mile. What now, Saul? You're gonna have the state put me to death again? Oh, there he goes calling himself Jesus. No, that's what you say. You're gonna have the state execute the spirit of what I am for sedition yet again. How'd that work out for you last time? They said, well, it worked out pretty good for us. We turned it into a very profitable business. Greatest selling book of all time. The Holy Bible came as a result. We got all these churches, right? Now they don't pay tax, a lot of them, but a lot of businesses, a lot of job creation. Okay, fair enough. All religion is man-made and therefore demonic. So Krishnamurti knew, Christ knew. Yeah, did Christ talk about a church? Yeah, he probably didn't have a choice. Again, Christ was not free to speak his mind. Benton seemingly is, because why? Because Moloch's machine has decided to still allow us to pretend like we have rights. You don't have any rights. I don't have Benton's, the fleshly legal entity Benton has no rights other than, again, outside of the let's be clear, outside of the context of vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions, not only does Benton not have any rights, Benton, again, is treated as if he's guilty. Right? What are the rights of a guilty person? The government has already decided that it has the authority to declare me an enemy combatant terrorist anytime it feels like it by filing secret documents with a secret court and seizing me bodily, habeas corpus this, motherfuckers, and put me on a plane and flying my happy ass to Guantanamo with a hood over my head. It's already decided it gets to do that any fucking time it wants to, folks. And that has nothing to do with me. I refuse to alter my behavior. I refuse to alter my thinking. I refuse to change anything whatsoever based on the idea that they might show up, put a hood over my head, and fly my happy ass to Guantanamo. Fuck you. I'd like to see it. Part of me would like to see it. Yeah, I'll go check out Guantanamo. Fuck it. Truck driving, Guantanamo. What's the fucking difference? It's all a gulag. Oh no, don't take me out of the soft gulag and put me in the hard gulag. Oh, and now I'm in the hard gulag, and now you put me in the gulag of the gulag, which is, administrative segregation. Oh no. Oh no. Render unto Caesar, motherfucker. Let the dead bury the dead. Here's the dead flesh. It belonged to you. If you're claiming Caesar to rule this world of death, then this flesh is dead and it's your property. Do with it as you see fit. That's the Christ story. That's the whole thing about being marched through the streets, mocked, ridiculed, physically attacked, crown of thorns, whipped, driven forward, carrying a cross. That's all the dead flesh. Okay. I don't have control over that anyway. Take it. That's the victory of Christ. That's the symbol of the victory of Christ over this world of death, is to say, oh, really? You're going to do what to me? Okay, here I am. Do it. Now, the man may have not overtly said it. He said it with his actions, folks. He said it with his behavior. Okay. And how is somebody going to pass himself off as a so-called follower of Christ and not follow that example? And I'm not here to say anybody should follow the example of Christ. I'm not here to tell anybody what they should or should not do whatsoever. I'm talking about what I'm doing. I'm talking about what I am. I'm talking about what I represent right here, right now. And as far as I can tell, I'm just about the only motherfucker doing it. I'm going to assume I'm the only American until I meet another one. Now, maybe there's a few more out there. I probably met a few when I was living out of a backpack traveling the country. I weren't really thinking that way back then. Where are they in 2026? Don't know. Don't know. Again, you're welcome for the privilege and pleasure of witnessing, 9 of you, the most powerful, on point preaching of a sermon that is accessible in this world until proven otherwise. Thanks for listening. Bye.